Imagine this for a moment. A violent storm tears through the Mediterranean Sea. Waves rise like walls. A merchant ship is thrown helplessly against the water. Wood cracks. Cargo sinks. A lifetime of wealth disappears beneath the surface. When the storm ends, one man survives. He crawls onto the shores of Athens with nothing, no money, no cargo, no future plan. That man's name was Zeno of Citium. And from this single shipwreck would emerge one of the most powerful philosophies ever created, a philosophy that would guide Roman emperors, strengthen enslaved men, and help millions face loss, fear, and uncertainty for over 2,300 years. This is not a story about success. It is a story about losing everything and discovering what truly cannot be lost. This is the story of how Stoicism was born. Before Zeno became a philosopher, before his name was associated with wisdom, discipline, and resilience, he was something far more ordinary. A merchant. Zeno was born around 334 BCE in Citium, a port city on the island of Cyprus. He came from a Phoenician trading family, deeply connected to Mediterranean commerce. This was not a life of contemplation. It was a life of profit, risk, and trade routes. Zeno dealt in one of the most valuable commodities of the ancient world, Tyrian purple dye. This dye was so rare, so expensive, that it became the color of kings and emperors. Thousands of sea snails were crushed to produce a single small amount. To trade in purple was to trade in power and prestige, and Zeno was successful. He was not searching for meaning. He was not questioning life. He was doing what society rewarded then and still rewards now, accumulating wealth, building security, chasing success, until the sea intervened. Around 304 BCE, Zeno boarded a ship bound for Athens, his cargo hold filled with purple dye, his fortune concentrated into fragile wooden planks floating on water. The Mediterranean was unforgiving. Storms came without warning. Ships vanished without record. And one storm changed everything. Zeno's ship was destroyed. The cargo sank, his wealth gone. When Zeno reached Athens, he was no longer a merchant. He was a stranger, a refugee, a man stripped of identity and status. For most people, this moment becomes the end of the story. Bitterness, despair, or a desperate attempt to rebuild what was lost. But Zeno did something different. Instead of chasing wealth again, he began walking the streets of Athens, not with ambition, but with curiosity. One day, Zeno stepped into a small Athenian bookshop. There, he picked up a book almost at random. It was Xenophon's Memorabilia, a collection of teachings and conversations of Socrates. As Zeno read, something stirred. Here was a man, Socrates, who owned nothing, who held no official power, yet remained calm, fearless, and morally unshaken. Socrates had lost everything many times, and still possessed something unbreakable. Zeno looked up and asked the bookseller a simple question: "Where can I find men like this?" Not books, not ideas, men, living proof. The bookseller pointed outside and said the man was Crates of Thebes, a philosopher, a cynic, a former wealthy citizen who had deliberately given away his fortune. Crates lived in poverty by choice. He slept in public places. He mocked luxury. He rejected social conventions. His message was brutal and simple. Virtue is the only true good. Everything else is irrelevant. Wealth, status, pleasure, pain, all indifferent. For Zeno, who had just lost everything, this idea was not abstract. It was liberating. If wealth was never truly good, then losing it was not a tragedy. It was clarification. But Zeno would not remain a cynic. He respected Crates, yet felt something was missing. So he studied more. He studied logic, physics, ethics. And slowly, a new philosophy began to take shape. One less extreme than cynicism, more practical than Plato, and grounded in reason. A philosophy born not in comfort, but in catastrophe. After years of study, reflection, and inner discipline, Zeno was ready not to build an empire, not to regain wealth, but to teach. Around 300 BCE, Zeno began teaching philosophy in Athens at a public place called the Stoa Poikel, the Painted Porch. It was not a private academy, not a gated school for the elite. It stood in the agora, the heart of the city, where merchants argued prices, politicians debated power, and ordinary people lived ordinary lives. This mattered. Zeno believed philosophy should not hide from life. It should prepare you for it. From this porch, a new philosophy took its name, Stoicism. Unlike many philosophers before him, Zeno was not interested in clever arguments alone. He asked one question above all others: how should a human being live? Not in theory, in practice. How do you face loss without breaking? How do you remain calm when life turns against you? How do you live well, even when circumstances are cruel? Zeno organized Stoicism into 3 interconnected parts. He used metaphors to explain them, simple, memorable, and practical. Logic, for the Stoics, was not academic wordplay. It was mental self-defense. Zeno taught that suffering does not come directly from events. It comes from our judgments about those events. The loss of money does not destroy you. The belief I am ruined does. Stoic logic trained the mind to detect false beliefs, question emotional reactions, separate facts from interpretation. If your thinking was disciplined, your emotions would follow. Logic was the wall that protected the soul. Stoic physics explained how reality works. The universe, Zeno taught, is not random chaos. It is governed by logos, rational order, reason, natural law. Everything is connected. Everything unfolds according to cause and effect. This does not mean life is easy. It means life is understandable. And when you understand nature, you stop fighting what cannot be changed. You stop demanding reality obey your desires. Instead, you align yourself with it. Ethics was the heart of Stoicism, the purpose of everything else. Zeno's claim was radical and uncompromising. Virtue is the only true good. Vice is the only true evil. Everything else, wealth, health, pleasure, pain, reputation, loss, these were called indifference, not because they don't matter, but because they do not determine whether you live well. A good person can be poor. A corrupt person can be rich. Circumstances do not define character. Stoic virtue had 4 pillars: wisdom, seeing reality clearly; justice, treating others fairly; stristis, porridge, courage facing fear without surrender; moderation, self-control and balance. To possess one was to possess all. Virtue was not partial. You either lived by reason or you did not. For Zeno, the goal of life was eudaimonia, a flourishing, well-lived life. Not pleasure, not success, but alignment. To live according to nature and reason. When you accept what is outside your control and focus fully on what is within it, your judgments, your actions, your character, you become free. This was not optimism, it was clarity. Zeno did not merely teach these ideas, he lived them. He slept on the floor, he ate simply, he rejected luxury, and when loss came again, he proved that Stoicism was not theory, it was practice. Zeno did not teach behind closed doors, he taught in public where life happened. At the Stoa Poikila, anyone could stop, listen, question, and argue. Merchants, soldiers, politicians, enslaved people. Stoicism belonged to no class. Zeno himself became the strongest argument for his philosophy. He lived simply, he owned little, he asked for nothing, yet people described him as calm, steady, and unshaken. In a city obsessed with reputation and status, Zeno appeared immune. Years after the first shipwreck, misfortune visited again. Zeno received news that another shipment, his personal belongings, had been lost at sea. Students watched closely. This was the moment where philosophy either collapses or proves itself. Zeno's response was simple. Fortune bids me to be a less encumbered philosopher. No bitterness, no complaint, not because he felt nothing, but because he understood what truly mattered. He had lost objects, not himself. Anyone can speak wisely when life is easy. Very few remain wise when life takes away. Zeno showed his students that Stoicism was not about denying pain. It was about not surrendering to it. External events could harm the body, but not the character. And that difference changed everything. Zeno taught for decades until his death around 262 BCE. Though he was foreign-born, Athens honored him with a golden crown, a public burial, statues in major philosophical centers. But his true monument was not stone. It was the Stoic tradition. After Zeno's death, the school did not fade. It strengthened. Cleanthes of Assos succeeded him, a man of endurance and devotion. Cleanthes preserved Zeno's teachings with loyalty. Then came Chrysippus of Soli. If Zeno built the foundation, Chrysippus built the structure. He wrote hundreds of works, systematized Stoic logic, ethics, and physics, and transformed Stoicism into a complete philosophical system. Later Stoics would say, if there had been no Chrysippus, there would have been no Stoa. What began on a storm-broken ship now stood as one of Greece's most powerful philosophies. But its greatest journey was yet to come. Stoicism was about to leave Greece and change the world. Stoicism might have remained a quiet Greek school, a footnote in history. But history had other plans. As Roman power expanded across the Mediterranean, Greek culture flowed into Rome. Philosophers followed armies. Ideas crossed borders. And Stoicism found something it had never faced before: empire. Rome was not interested in abstract speculation. Romans asked harder questions. How should power be used? How should leaders act? How do you remain virtuous when politics is ruthless? Stoicism had answers. Rome was built on discipline, duty, and endurance. Stoicism spoke that language. It taught self-control over impulse, duty over pleasure, reason over emotion, character over comfort in a world of political assassinations, exile, and sudden death. Stoicism became a psychological armor. Cicero, Rome's greatest orator, was not a strict Stoic, but he admired Stoic ethics deeply. He defended the idea that virtue is the highest good. Reason should guide political life. Moral integrity matters more than success. Through Cicero's writings, Stoic ideas entered Roman law, governance, and education. Seneca the Younger was a statesman, dramatist, and philosopher. He advised Emperor Nero. He was immensely wealthy, and yet he wrote endlessly about simplicity, self-control, and indifference to wealth. Critics called him a hypocrite. Seneca did not deny the contradiction. He argued that wealth is not evil. Attachment to it is. When Nero turned against him, Seneca was ordered to die. He obeyed calmly. In death, he proved what his writings claimed: character outlasts circumstance. Perhaps the purest Stoic example was Epictetus, born enslaved, physically abused, crippled. Yet he taught, "You may chain my leg, but not my will." Epictetus owned nothing and claimed to possess everything. Freedom, he argued, is internal. No one can steal your judgments, your values, your character, unless you give them away. At the height of Roman power ruled Marcus Aurelius, an emperor commanding legions. Yet privately, he wrote reminders to himself. Do not seek praise, send fate without complaint. Act justly. Even when exhausted, his journal, later called Meditations, was never meant to inspire others. Yet it became one of the most influential Stoic texts ever written. Power did not corrupt Marcus Aurelius. Stoicism restrained it. From slave to emperor, Stoicism proved universal. It did not promise success. It promised strength. and that promise carried it across centuries. By the 4th century CE, Stoicism began to fade. Christianity rose, offering salvation through divine grace rather than rational self-mastery. Ancient Stoic schools closed. The Stoa Poikile disappeared, but Stoicism did not die. Its ideas survived, hidden in theology, embedded in ethics, resurfacing whenever humanity faced uncertainty. During the Renaissance, Stoicism returned as Neo-Stoicism. In times of war, plague, and political chaos, thinkers rediscovered its strength. And in the modern world, Stoicism returned again, not as religion, but as psychological wisdom. Modern psychology reached a conclusion the Stoics already knew. We are not disturbed by events, but by our judgments about them. This idea sits at the heart of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. CBT teaches that by identifying distorted thoughts and replacing them with rational ones, emotional suffering can be reduced. This is Stoicism 2,000 years later with clinical language. Stoicism offers practical tools that modern science now validates. SLAN's dichotomy of control focus only on what you can control, reduces anxiety. Flameditatio malorum, visualizing loss, builds resilience. Verdusatio focus character over outcome, lasting meaning. Emotional examination, question impulses. Meme and time, Mori remember death, clarity of priorities. These are not rituals. They are mental training. Studies show that people practicing Stoic techniques experience lower anxiety, greater emotional resilience, increased life satisfaction, clearer sense of purpose. Mental health professionals increasingly use Stoic principles, especially in moments of crisis when control feels lost. Zeno's shipwreck was not unique, only dramatic. Every human life faces collapse, slife, illness, financial loss, broken relationships, slife, death. The question is never if the storm comes, it is how you respond. Had Zeno's ship never sunk, he might have lived comfortably and died unnoticed. Loss stripped away the unnecessary. It revealed what remained. The shipwreck did not create wisdom. It exposed it. Stoicism teaches a hard truth. Everything external is temporary. Money, status, body, reputation. But one thing remains untouchable. Your character, your choices, your values, your response. Zeno lost a ship. Humanity gained a philosophy. From a broken vessel emerged an inner fortress, a way of living grounded not in control over the world, but in control over oneself. Stoicism does not promise happiness. It promises strength. It teaches us that while we cannot calm the storm, we can learn how to stand within it. And that lesson, born on a stormy sea over 2,000 years ago, has never been more relevant than it is today. If this story resonated with you, remember, your greatest losses may carry your greatest lessons. And no matter what you face, your inner character is something no storm can ever sink.